Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to conquer what I consider the ultimate tech setup, seamlessly running Windows 11 and Ubuntu on a single powerhouse machine. You know, if you've ever wanted that raw power of Linux, perfectly paired with the mainstream compatibility of Windows, but kind of felt intimidated by the whole installation process, well, you are exactly where you need to be. We're going to break this whole thing down visually, step by step, and completely remove the mystery.
All right, let's take a quick look at our roadmap for today. We'll be moving through prerequisites in prep, managing disk partitions, tackling the missing driver roadblock, executing the BIOS breakthrough, protecting existing data, and finally, getting to the final dual boot workflow.
Let's jump right into Part 1, Prerequisites and Prep.
Okay, these 4 system prerequisites are your absolutely crucial foundation before we do, well, literally anything else. First, grab a high-speed USB flash drive with at least 16 gigs of storage. Honestly, brands like Kingston or SanDisk are usually your best bet for reliability here. You'll also need the official Windows 11 ISO file, pulled straight from Microsoft's actual download portal. Next up, make sure your laptop is plugged into the wall and double-check that you actually have administrator access to your BIOS. Because without that BIOS access, we literally won't be able to bypass the upcoming roadblocks. And finally, you need to carve out a safe space, a minimum of 100 gigabytes of unallocated space right on your internal SSD.
Now, when you're actually configuring your installation media with Rufus, which, let's be real, is by far the most reliable tool for modern systems, you need to make absolutely sure you set your partition scheme to GPT and your target system to UEFI non-CSM. This is a game changer. Skip those generic multi-boot tools for this part. A dedicated, cleanly formatted USB through Rufus is going to wipe out any weird old partitions and hand you a pure, bootable Windows 11 drive that your machine's UEFI will instantly recognize.
Moving right along to Section 2, Managing Disk Partitions.
You're going to want to follow these 3 specific steps to shrink your volume. But hey, pay super close attention to your current Linux partition size, okay? We definitely don't want to accidentally override it later. So first, use a tool like gparted if you're hanging out in Ubuntu, or disk management if you're already in Windows, just to shrink your existing primary partition. Second, and I cannot stress this enough, leave that target space completely unallocated. Don't go formatting it to NTFS or FAT32 yet, just leave it raw. And third, literally write down or burn into your brain the exact size of your current Ubuntu partition. Like if it's 326 gigs, remember that exact number. It's going to be your ultimate safety net later on.
Which brings us to Section 3, the missing driver roadblock. So why does this terrifying little error actually pop up? Well, it happens simply because the Windows installer environment completely lacks the Intel RST or VMD drivers for your NVMe SSD. You click Install, and Windows basically just throws its hands up like, hey, I can't see a hard drive here, and asks for a CD or USB with the driver. It is incredibly frustrating, right? Because your drive is sitting right there, physically in the machine, but the default setup media just doesn't know how to talk to the specific storage controller your modern laptop is using. Now, a lot of folks fall right into the trap of wrestling with corrupted WinRAR archives or annoying binary locks, desperately trying to manually feed these drivers into the installer. Actually, trying to extract Intel's .exe drivers using WinRAR almost always just throws these corrupted archive errors at you. Since they're compiled executables, not your standard zip files, they're locked down tight. And because Windows setup demands raw .inf and .sys files, it turns into a massive headache. But listen, we're going to use an elegant hardware bypass instead. I mean, why fight the software when we can just change the rules of the game at the hardware level?
Let's look at Section 4, the BIOS breakthrough.
Get this, 95% of the time, this invisible wall exists for one simple reason. Laptops, particularly from Dell, ship directly from the factory with RAID on enabled, essentially hiding your SSD behind an Intel management layer. And hey, that's totally fine for their pre-installed OS, but it creates a massive roadblock when you're trying to drop a fresh copy of Windows right next to your Linux build.
But here is the fix. Switching your SATA operation from RAID over to AHCI completely exposes the drive to the OS, instantly obliterating that missing driver error. You just reboot your machine, spam that F2 key to get into your BIOS, head over to the storage menu, find SATA operation, and just flip that toggle from RAID on over to AHCI/NVMe. Apply the changes, save, and boom. By doing this one single thing, you bypass the need for those complicated Intel drivers entirely. Windows is now going to see your NVMe SSD directly, exactly as nature intended.
All right, Section 5, Protecting Existing Data.
So you'll quickly boot up from your prepared USB using the F12 menu and dive straight into the Windows setup screens. Just spam that F12 key the second you see your manufacturer's logo, select your Rufus USB under the UEFI section, and let it do its thing. Oh, and a quick side note here, if Windows 10 has given you constant driver headaches in the past, going with Windows 11 here is a massive upgrade. It actually has way better native support for those newer 11th and 12th gen Intel VMD controllers. Okay, please pay incredibly close attention to this part. You absolutely must select your specific unallocated space and completely avoid anything labeled unknown or system to keep your Ubuntu build safe. When you select Custom, Install Windows Only, you're going to see a big list of partitions. You are looking for that exact chunk of unallocated space we carved out back in Step 1. Remember that Linux partition size I told you to write down? This is where you use it. Partitions labeled Unknown are almost certainly your Ubuntu system, and System is your EFI bootloader, so strictly leave those alone, click exactly on the unallocated space, and hit Next. Finally, Section 6, the final dual boot workflow.
This final stretch is an absolute breeze. Windows is just going to copy files over to your SSD, download the necessary setup updates, reboot a couple of times, and eventually drop you right onto your pristine, brand new Windows 11 desktop. At this point, you can just sit back, relax, and let the system run through its normal, out-of-box setup experience.
And there you have it. Your dual boot environment is completely ready to rock. It's running flawlessly on AHCI mode, with GRUB elegantly stepping in to handle the OS switching every single time you power up. You don't even need to keep any USB drives plugged in anymore. And since we flipped over to AHCI mode in the BIOS, both your Windows and Ubuntu kernels are fully supported and will run buttery smooth. Oh, and any missing minor drivers for your keyboard, trackpad, or Wi-Fi? Windows Update is just going to pull those down automatically the second you connect to the internet.
So, with all those technical barriers completely shattered, what new possibilities are you going to unlock now that you have both Windows 11 and Linux right at your fingertips? I really want to leave you with that thought to spark your curiosity as you go out and explore your incredible new powerhouse machine. You truly have the ultimate setup now, uncompromising performance on both sides of the OS fence. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and seriously, enjoy your seamlessly dual-booted system.